Welcome to the Are You OK podcast. I'm in the studio today with high performance mindset coach Joe Mountford, creator of player wellness program Beet It with Joe, and my neighbor. So this is really cool. Welcome to the studio, Joe.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you very much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here with you, neighbor.
I know. We've spoken, obviously, not in the studio, about Beet It with Joe. And it's really opened up my mind to what high performance mindset coaching is. But can you give me, again, a bit of a run through? Tell me what Beet It with Joe is and what is it you do?
Thank you, Kate. So the Beet It with Joe is a player wellness program, as you said, and I've really looked at athletes and people as whole people. And so, first of all, I'm a therapist. And so I look at helping people heal and develop holistically. And then I'm also a Clifton Strengths coach, where I look at how people are at their best. So that it's a psychometric assessment, which people do, and it assesses where they can be the best version of themselves, and I help coach them in that area. And then the other thing that I do to help people perform under pressure, to focus their attention and to be absolutely optimal, is something called Gazing Red2Blue.
Okay.
And that's where the high performance, performing under pressure in the moment, that's the technique that I use for athletes.
Okay, so is it just athletes that you work with?
Kate, that is my passion.
Okay.
I do work with corporates. I have worked with families. I work with individuals and teams, but I think my heart pumps the most when working with athletes. So my first degree was in sport, and I played sport myself at a decent level.
Okay, what sports did you play?
I played a lot of hockey, and I absolutely loved it. And I've continued to play sport throughout my life, but I think with a bit more maturity, I'm less competitive. It's more about the process than the outcome.
All right.
Which is a nice learning. Where were we again? What was I saying? Player wellness, corporates and teams. So with the corporates, I've mainly done the Clifton Strengths.
Okay, what is that?
And so that's, again, they do an assessment and it gives them a top 5 what their strengths are. And then you do coaching with individuals so that they understand how to be the best version of themselves. And then you bring the team together to see how they can use each other wisely, and so that the team can be a well-oiled clock, because we can't all be the same.
No.
And we've all got different strengths. And so it's also giving yourself a language of, this is how I can be really good, but I lack in that area, but I can use you, for example, to stand up and do a presentation because I don't like doing a presentation, for example.
Okay.
That would be an example. So then when I use that with athletes, it's also being able to communicate with the coaches. This is how you can get the best out of your player. But it's also that the player or individual understands, this is where I'm going to be in my zone. These are the things which will trigger me to be at my worst. So now this is how I need to manage it. So that is a tool that's fantastic, and it's you can use it for anybody.
Okay, so you could work with an individual player, team player, and then would you then work with the team as a whole thereafter?
As a whole, and I would also do it with the management and the coaches, the physios, everybody. Because when you're wanting the best out of a player, you need to be able to speak their language. It's like trying to come in on an FM and an AM level. If you don't understand how to get the best out of that player, you're wasting time and energy.
Yeah.
So it's a very effective way. For example, I'll give you 2 examples. One of the strengths could be competition. I'm talking about athletes now. Competition is an externally driven strength. So to get the best out of that individual, for example, if it was hockey, I'm going to use that as an example, or swimming, let's use swimming. If I wanted a swimmer to get a better time, for example, I'd put somebody faster in next to them. That's an external drive. That'll push them to do better.
Right.
If it was a sales team, somebody with competition would be trying to find their competitor and see what they're doing, and that would push their sales. If, for example, they had achiever in their top 5, achiever is an internally driven strength, so they are their push.
Yeah.
They like to have lists and there's a huge sense of satisfaction by crossing that off their list. So if they were going, for example, to a hockey practice, I would encourage them to have their plan, and that by the end of practice they can tick off their list, and that's how they would feel a sense of accomplishment. So it's just a really lovely way to understand myself and my teammates.
That's brilliant.
Yep.
As you're saying that is actually a test that I would like to do for myself, because the competition aspect that you've just mentioned there, that's not something that I'm interested in. But when you mentioned then sort of the characteristics about achiever, it being internal, the idea of having checklists and things to work through, that is what I can certainly resonate with. Where can I do that test?
I'll send you a code, and then you do the assessment online.
And I can do that with Beet It with Joe.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm actually going to do
and then
that.
And then I'll take you through the coaching, so you can understand where you've used these strengths before.
Yeah.
If you're using them currently, and how you can take them into the future. And so that's why when I talk about one of the other things that I do with athletes is helping them with a plan B.
Okay.
So that after their professional career, what is happening next, so that their career doesn't come to an end, and then what is my identity? If I'm not, for example, I'm working with an Olympic diver, springboard diver.
Yeah.
She's competing in her third and final Olympics in August, July, August. And so we're already thinking about, what's your plan B? What is your identity if you're not a springboard diver? What's your purpose in the day if I'm not getting up, eating, sleeping, diving?
Yeah.
And so I use the Clifton Strengths. These are your strengths that you're using currently. How can we translate that into another career? How can this be of interest to you in something else that you can keep your purpose alive, and you can translate your skills into something else?
I love that, because, I mean, it's something that I struggle with. Is I'm now at the age of 39. I'm holding on to that 39 because August it disappears. I'm finding now my passion, my purpose, and it's taken me this long to get there. I can imagine people coming out of professional sport or having maybe a life change, that their career takes a completely different path, or maybe their career just disappears for any reason. You're left lost. You know you've got a skill set. You just don't know where to put it or what direction to go. And it's that feeling of being lost and a little bit hopeless.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do that test. But, I mean, you mentioned there about athletes, but that is entirely transferable into any team environment, corporate workspace.
Everybody. I've even done it with families.
Okay.
So that family members understand. For example, if my husband has got woo in their top 5.
What's woo?
So woo is somebody who loves to network, gets their energy through people. So they are energized by spending time with people.
Yeah.
They will network. They will find out just a little bit about people, like the surface, and then be able to connect them.
Okay.
And they'll be able to go from one function to the next function, because that's what energizes them. Then, for example, if the wife has got relator, or a child has got relator, or whatever the case may be, relator is, it's a relationship building theme. And that person likes to spend time, for example, with one person, getting to understand them on a deeper level. They don't need hordes of people. They are drained by, like, a cocktail party, for example.
Okay.
So if those two are married, they could come into conflict when the one wants to go on to the next party and wife wants to go home. But if there's an understanding that relator is done and needs to go home, then woo can go on to their party. It's just having the understanding. This is me at my best, but I can't do that. I need time out to recharge my battery. So relator needs time out to recharge their battery, and they don't need hundreds of friends.
That is so interesting, because it's a conversation that we had recently, is that I am that 80-20 rule almost. 80% of my time, if I can have that to myself. And for me, I get my most energy, inspiration by being on my own, by walking in nature. That is when I'm my most productive, creative and content. And then during that 20% of the time, I can give the best version of myself to everybody else. But it's just finding that balance, and it's very difficult.
I think it's the awareness, Kate. So if you did your assessment and you might find out that you've got strategic thinking themes in your top 5, and those people spend a lot of time in their head.
Yeah.
So, for example, if people had these themes and I was coaching them and they say, well, I'm actually not using that, then we would find things that I would encourage them, go for a walk or close your door so that you get time in your head, because that's where you're the most creative, reflective.
Yeah.
You would need the time for that. And if you get that time, you can be far more productive, add far more input to a team or in your work.
Yeah.
But if you weren't aware of it, you could be bumbling along trying to do other things, which wouldn't help you.
No, because it does create then frustration within yourself when you know that you're not functioning at your most optimal self. And then it's frustrating maybe for other people who is in relationship with you because you're not engaged with them, because half the time your brain is trying to scramble to think about the things it should have been thinking about.
To be satisfied. And I suppose it's also, if people understand you, they can manage their expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, again, the more self-awareness you have, the more choice you have.
Yeah.
It's when you're not self-aware, you don't know what you want and you don't know what you don't want.
Yeah.
So it's having that awareness that you have choice.
Okay. So you work with athletes. It's an incredible methodology that can be transferred into the corporate and the corporate and familial setting. But you also work with students. Yeah?
Yeah. So the one aspect of my work, which I'm absolutely passionate about and I love, is called Gazing Red2Blue.
Yeah, what is that?
So that is a mindset technique that helps people perform under pressure. And so for the past 2 years, I worked with Sunshine Ladies golfers.
Okay.
And I work over Zoom because they're obviously all traveling around the world.
Yeah.
So it's an easy technique that I can use with them. And it's a process that you take them through, understanding when you're in the red head, which the red head is when you're feeling overwhelmed, under pressure, and just understanding that pressure exists. It's becoming aware of what your triggers are, who your triggers are, what situations you feel overwhelmed, and how your body's responding to it, how you react, how you communicate, and then having a look at what you look like when you're in the zone. So what you look like when you're in the blue.
Yeah.
And then developing techniques that when you're under pressure and in the moment, you can shift from that space into the blue. So I work with, currently I've got quite a few school kids.
Okay.
Up and coming athletes. One is a springboard diver. She just missed going to the Olympics in November, which I think is a good thing actually, because she's in her final year of school, so we can focus on that.
Yeah.
And then I'm working with some swimmers. And so they've got to juggle academic pressure, exams, as well as the selection of all these different swimming things. And then swimming is an individual sport, and so is diving. So it's the pressure of that. Diving compared to swimming, it's a 30-second or less time that you have to be focused, and it's being able to acknowledge that the pressure exists and get rid of all the distractions.
Yeah.
And then bring your attention back into the moment and be on task, because if you're not, you'll mess it up.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got the chance of injury. Yeah. So it really is about, it's not focusing on what others are doing. It's not focusing on what social media is saying or what the crowd is doing. It's being able to switch that off.
But how?
So that's the pre-competition work we do. So we do something where we'll create a scenario, their own example of what pressure looks like and feels like. And often, for example, with hockey teams, I'll give them scenarios so that we make it completely realistic. So, for example, I'll say, what happens if your team is a really good team and you've got a target on your back and you feel like the umpire is against you and it keeps blowing for the other team, etc. And then we'll work on control. what you can control, what you can't control, what you can let go of. Again, it's awareness. It's becoming aware of that type of thing. I'll give them examples. What's happened if you get a card and you're sent off, or if the team scores while you're off, or that you're sitting on the bench for too long. So you create a whole lot of what ifs.
Okay.
And then by doing the preparation, then you've got steps that I'll teach you rituals. You create your own rituals to help you zoom out, zoom back in, and then get into the moment. If you listen to Novak Djokovic, the tennis player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah. He says 80% of performance happens before you step onto the court.
Really?
So this is very much part of his routine too. It's mental prep, what if, like just having a plan B for everything. You can't plan it all, but by having a plan B, reducing stress.
Yeah.
And stress is definitely the number one thing that pulls you into the red zone.
Yeah.
And my best way of describing stress is like a snow globe. And if you shake a snow globe, it's just fuzz. And you can't think clearly.
No.
And you can't make clear decisions. And some of the techniques that I do, other than the Gazing Red2Blue to help the snow, is breathing and meditation.
All right.
And through breathing and meditation, it also helps settle that snow.
Yeah.
But you've got to understand that you're in the snow.
Yeah.
That's not a helpful state to be in, and then techniques to help settle the snow, to have clearer vision.
And we know about breathing, we know about meditation, but it's having that awareness to bring it in during that moment. How do you switch the brain from being in that snow globe, everything's happening right now, you know that you need to perform, you know you're under pressure, but how do you bring your brain back down to a place of calm?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kate, because half the time if it was that easy, right? If it was that easy, you would just go, okay, here I go back into the blue.
Yeah.
So you're never alone, are you?
No.
In all your performances, you're never alone. You've always got a coach or a somebody with you.
Yeah.
And if you're a team, you've got a teammate, and that's why it's so helpful, the team doing it, because your teammate can call you out on it.
Okay.
And it's not a call you out on it to bring you down, it's to help you switch so that you can get back on task, onto the job that you're supposed to be doing or that you want to be doing, so you can get you back into your flow. For my diver, she's got her coach. I've got a young tennis player, she's 14 at the moment, and she shared the Red2Blue with her coach, and the feedback from her coach was fantastic, because it was like, you're in the red, what do you need to get into the blue? And just that was the switch to help her look at her notes, because I asked her to put notes together, having a plan, like Serena Williams has a little note, so that she's able to just check back into get me back on task. With my swimmer, the one young swimmer that I've got, her coach also sent her a text after her performance saying, that's where you were in the red when you were there. These are the things that you could do to bring you back into the blue. So it's just having someone who can reflect back to you. Yeah. Because sometimes we don't know. It's just all overwhelming. We don't know that our body language has changed. We don't know that our shoulders are tense. Yeah. We don't know that we may be talking too fast or reactive, or we go completely silent. So the work that I do is bringing the awareness to that. So, for example, I will get them to fill out what they look, feel like, react, etc., in their red, get the parents to do it, get the coaches to do it. So there's a whole team feedback. Yeah. So that you've got everybody on board to help you with the switch. And then the better the more you do it, the more you practice it. So the Red2Blue is really about developing a skill. Mindset is a skill, just like dribbling in football or your penalty kick in rugby. It's developing the skill, and the skill is practiced.
Gosh, I really am going to take you up on this. I'm going to do the psychometric test that you do.
That's the Clifton Strengths, the psychometric test, and then I'll take you through the Gazing Red2Blue process.
Because I genuinely want to know what my strengths are, and I know when I'm in that snow globe, that red zone, I know, because everything is foggy. Nothing is making sense. I am walking through treacle. That's it.
Yes.
But then I also know when I'm in the blue zone, because everything is brilliant. I'm inspired. There is sunshine in my life. Everything is flowing. There's a great momentum, and you can feel it in yourself from a physical, mental, creative energy. Everything is flowing and everything is fitting together. So I'm going to look forward to being taken from red to blue. That's awesome. A couple of things that we've been talking about recently on Are You OK? The main topic we've been talking about is burnout. In your profession and with the athletes that you work with, how does burnout manifest there?
I think if we look at burnout, and burnout was quite a big thing after COVID, right?
Yeah.
People, that was a huge topic. One of the things that I am pedantic about with my athletes is I check in on sleep. Okay. But leading up to sleep, I talk about nutrition. Like, how are you fueling your body? Are you using it to thrive, or are you using nutrition to survive, or are you unaware of how your food is impacting your system and how it can help or hinder you? So that's a big thing. I check in on caffeine intake. I encourage chamomile tea before they go to sleep.
Always chamomile tea.
Yeah. I really check in on sleep, because sleep is recovery for both your muscles and your mind.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So when one hits burnout, the body has had adrenaline surge after adrenaline surge, and it can no longer produce so you really are in survival mode. So sleep is a key point that I look at. Then another thing that I bring in is meditation before sleep.
Okay.
So because so many people are on their devices and recharging the neurons on another level so that they go to bed wired.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another huge thing that I bring in to help bring down the revs, engage the parasympathetic nervous system. Because if people can bring in a holistic approach to their living, that they are going to be more aware of how to prevent burnout.
Yeah.
It's when we're on that treadmill going at 160 and we can't step off.
No.
You're heading that way, right? But if you can put little things in place, and they don't have to be drastic, it doesn't mean that you're going to be going off to do a marathon. But if there can be encouragement when I say you have to exercise, but I'm obviously not telling my athletes to exercise, but if I'm talking to corporates, they have to exercise. The exercise might be parking your car further from the Pick and Pay.
Yeah.
It might be taking the stairs. It might be, if you're feeling stressed, going for a walk with a friend at lunchtime. Yeah. It's just adding some move the body, move the mind, right? Like you just got to shift that energy.
Oh, 100%.
Another thing, it's not necessarily related to burnout, but it's just the most incredible thing that I've recently learned about. My springboard diver who lives in Johannesburg, she was going to compete in Japan last year. But in Johannesburg and Durban, there's no heated pool.
Okay.
So she had to train in freezing cold water in winter. So she had to dive straight into freezing cold water.
Oh.
Yeah. And they had this little, seriously like a little rubber, plastic tub where her coach would put hot water in so she could get out and warm in there. Anyway, I had done research about cold water swimming and the benefits for mental health and physical health.
Oh, yeah.
And for stress and for all of that. So I started in winter doing cold water swimming.
Did you?
Yeah.
At home? Or?
No. I went to the sea because it needed to be aesthetically pleasing for me as well. So beautiful surroundings and going with friends. So it was a whole vibe.
Oh yeah. No,
okay.
I mean you're preaching to the choir here because it's the best.
Yeah. And then I would take my GoPro with me and I would film and I would say, Z, I'm getting to the water, the outside temperature is 7, the pool, the sea temperature is 12. At the moment, my body's in fight and flight mode because as you get in, it is.
Yeah.
And I said, and after 2 minutes, my body's relaxing. And I said, I've got there through deep breathing, breathing out, exhaling, etc. And then I would send her the video.
Yeah.
But we got to a place where we could be in the water for 20 minutes, and it was just euphoric. And so she started doing that. She started getting into the pool for 2 minutes before practicing diving. And that way her body was relaxed. And she was able to shift her mind to that this isn't just like I'm having to practice because I need to compete in the world champs in Japan. But it was actually helping her mind as well, that it was helping her relax. And she sent me a message and said, Jo, this is such a cool thing. Cool.
Being the operative.
Yeah. But if people have access to cold water swimming, like I know that ice bathing is supposed to be really good for you, but if you're able to see mountains or the sea or birds or something else from nature, it just takes it to another level of beauty.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've always loved to swim, and I've always said that you feel ill, you have a lot going on in your brain, you've got a hangover. Getting cold water, you instantly feel better.
Oh.
There is something so calming about it. And then when you come out, it's just that feeling of invigoration and
proper euphoria. It's like your body and mind is alive on another level.
No, I'm all about that. And it's actually something I've been looking at recently, is putting a ice bath in the house or outside the house.
Yeah. But if we had to connect anxiety to burnout, I think the key to preventing, one of the keys to preventing burnout is becoming aware of that you are anxious. Okay. Many people, like some of the athletes I've worked with, what does it feel like when you're in the red? What does anxiety feel like? And they don't have a vocabulary to describe what it is. So I'll say, if you feel in your chest, can you feel it in your chest? Is your heart racing faster? Does your head feel like it's racing and your thoughts are unclear? So number one is becoming aware of, are you anxious?
Yeah.
And if I'm anxious, what are the steps I can take to reduce that anxiety? Okay? And who and what is creating the anxiety? Because some stuff we can control and some stuff we can't control.
Yeah.
But if you become aware of those stresses, we can start preventing burnout. It's about learning to set boundaries in the corporate place.
Yeah.
It's about learning to say no. So I'll give you another one. With Clifton Strengths, one of the strengths is responsibility. So somebody with responsibility will do everything they say they're going to do. They often want to do everything because they like to control it and they want to do it perfectly. They don't want to disappoint other people, and they don't want to be disappointed by other people, so they'll do it rather.
Right.
If there are things to be done, they'll keep sticking up their hand. I'll do it. Can you hear burnout is coming?
Yeah.
Okay, so they overcommit, but they're not going to underdeliver. So they're going to just keep doing things. So again, it's the awareness of learning to say no and learning to delegate.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you are on a fast track to burnout.
Okay.
But again, it's self-awareness.
So, okay, I'm going to use myself as an example here. I know one of my greatest problems or my weakness is being a people pleaser.
Okay.
So in a I think maybe now more of a social situation, I feel that I have to say yes to people in order for them to be happy. And it's, how do I get around that? When I'm essentially doing things that I don't 100% want to do because I don't want to be responsible for somebody else's disappointment.
Yeah. I suppose, number one, you can go back to your mantra of, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like checking in with yourself, am I okay? And the answer to that is no, because it's creating an angst inside of you, which is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If I was looking at the Gazing Red2Blue, I'd bring out the recognition circles, and you would put into what am I in control of?
Yeah.
I'm in control of the decisions I make and how many people I agree to help, etc.
Yeah.
and you can slap straight into what I can't control is I can't control how they receive my information, how much they enjoy it, how much they like me, how much they like my opinion. That you can't control.
No.
That's their expectations. That's their interpret. So again, it's becoming aware. And it's accepting you for you.
Yeah.
And if people like you or not, that goes into the can't control circle. That's their choice.
Exactly. I cannot control other people's likes, dislikes, and their expectations of me. Okay. This is good therapy.
And if you care, do you know what I mean? Like, do you really care if that person really likes me or not? It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, because the ones that genuinely do, they genuinely do.
And that matters.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this is a really good therapy session. Let's talk a bit now about grief and loss. When we say those words, grief and loss, we instinctively go to the grief that comes with losing somebody. Yeah. But it's not. It's grief and loss comes in so many different forms. You know, if I bring it to myself, I lost my independence. I've lost 50% of my vision. I've lost the life expectations that I had before my accident. My life is completely different now. So whilst I have my life, and I have an amazing life, it is still dealing with the grief and the loss that has come along with that. How would you advise dealing with it?
Yeah,
Or
I
what
suppose.
methods
So grief and loss, as you said, it lands on many different areas. If I was dealing with you, with your grief and loss, I would probably take you through the 5 stages of grieving, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, where it's denial that it happened. It's the depression. Oh no, hang on. It's first the denial, then it's the anger.
Yeah.
The anger that why me? Why not somebody else? Why did that guy come through? Why didn't he see the pedestrian crossing? All that stuff.
Yeah.
Then the bargaining. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. Then there's the depression, like the reality of this is now my reality. And then there's an acceptance.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 stages of grieving that I would take you through, and we would unpack at every stage. It doesn't have to go in that order, and you can also sometimes go straight back to denial. And that process generally gets easier as time goes by. Have you found that?
Definitely. And I don't know if I ever I don't know if I ever went through anger. I've certainly gone through absolute sadness. And it's not necessarily thinking about those particular things that I've lost. It can just be life has sort of built up, and then my mind can take itself to this feeling of absolute just self-indulgent feeling sorry for myself. And it's in those moments that I can have the most cathartic crying ever, where it's literally coming from, I swear, my feet, and I am crying, making noises that I've never heard before. But in those moments, I know that it's cathartic.
But listen to me, in those moments, it can be one of gratitude, because wasn't it a frontal lobe injury?
It was a touch of frontal lobe. It was predominantly occipital lobe, so it's my vision. My vision, my balance, everything that's taken a knock. But
why I'm saying that, because if it's emotions that were damaged and you're able to feel like that, there's like sadness is a real feeling, and it's absolutely authentic to what happened. So it's appropriate to what happened. So I'm sorry you go through that, but it's part of your journey. But you've got this incredible energy and imagination and will to help others and to live your best life and the best version of it. I mean, you walking in the vineyards, and it's photographs you take with the beautiful sky and the nature and everything. You see the best that you can see. But let's get back to loss. in your loss, you also lost relationships.
Yeah.
You lost a life that was.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's real loss. So there's real grieving that happens in that. But at times you reach a level of acceptance.
You do. And I think you reach those levels of acceptance when you found peace with yourself. I certainly know that with my situation is I feel I've actually got more peace now than I did, say, before the accident. I think before the accident, I'm wired to be a people pleaser, and I certainly was that way before the accident happened. So I spent most of my time I was happy, but constantly on this hamster wheel of making sure that everybody else was happy. Because if everybody else was happy with me, then that was happiness, right? Whereas now, starting after catastrophic brain injury, when you've pretty much forgotten all of the twists and turns of life, you start from a place of authenticity. And so you actually grow a new life, but one that is genuine to you. And when you've got peace within yourself, you can have peace with everybody and everything. And I do live, I'd say 80% of my time, no, actually more than that, 90% of my time, I do live it in a state of just love and gratitude and brightness.
Yeah, I think, and I see that in you, and I think with many people, when they face adversity, they have to get off that hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And there has to be self-reflection. And I think you were given the opportunity, if I can call it that, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but if I can have the opportunity to reflect on, this is my life, I've been given a second chance, and this is what's important to me.
Yeah.
And it is authentic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You do that, and I mean, you just look like, I describe you to people as this happy fairy.
Oh, a happy fairy. Oh, I like that. I'm going to keep that one.
You are my happy fairy friend.
I like it. Thank you. I'm actually going to channel that now. In those moments where I'm feeling a bit bleak, I'm a happy fairy.
Flap those wings in the vineyards.
I will definitely do it.
But if I can use the loss and the grief back to my athletes, because it's real, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll give two examples. One, for my golfers, and it's for anybody, because every season comes to an end, and I mean a season as in the year, not the season of the end of your career, because I'll get to that next. But with an athlete, there's a structure in every day. If you're looking at a swimmer, it's getting up, it's training, it's eating, it's sleeping, it's eating, it's sleeping, it's training. It's like that's their structure. If it's a golfer, it's traveling and hotels and competition and trying to make the cut and getting to all the different events and mixing with different people and playing in the pro-ams so that they network with other people, etc., etc. So there's a whole structure to the whole year, and they know what it is at the beginning of the year. Then comes November and it's over. And there's a sense of loss, because if they're not with their family, because it's difficult to be married and have kids, etc., when you're a professional golfer, because
you're not there.
You're traveling all over the world, right? So now it becomes a time of loneliness and loss, and some people haven't made they haven't made enough points, and their sponsors may drop them, and there's all sorts of things that you don't think about. So even when we think that these people are living the best life, there are stages that I've taken some people through of loss, and it's then reframing what the next stage can look like. That's the one thing. And then it can obviously be loss of a tournament, or where they could have made it and they haven't, and it's like not taking it on. It's all me. You're actually human first.
How do they work through that?
Well, it's again managing expectations and working out what went wrong, and it's sport at the end of the day. It's not human first, and that's the key. Is like we've got to remember that. Then I've got a springboard diver who is retiring, as I said, at the end of the year. So it's the loss of your career, although we're planning for it. We're planning for the loss. We're planning for what does my life look like? What else can I do? How can I help others? Do I want to be coaching? Do I want to be doing something else? What does my life look like? Reframing it all. Because I know that there's some athletes that their whole goal is the Olympics. And their whole goal is gold or silver, or is generally gold. And then they don't get it. And then there's depression. And let me tell you, I worked in addiction for 8 years. The high-performance personality is chasing the dopamine high. And so is the cocaine addict, and so is the heroin addict. It's a fine line. And so no professional athlete can be balanced as such.
Yeah.
It has to be an imbalanced. I try and give them the balance as much as possible, but it's that push. It's that pushing for more, more, more. And so the addict is also doing that.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I very much bring that into how do you cope with loss? How do you cope with when things are not going your way? How do you cope in, especially footballers, there's a lot of downtime. There's too much money.
Yes.
What are you doing when you're traveling? What are you doing in the room on your own?
Okay.
And they're also too young, right?
Yeah.
So they get all this money too young, so they're immature, etc. So loss comes in lots of different areas.
Yeah.
And it's just becoming aware. Awareness is key.
Wow, awareness is key. Well, Jo, this has been amazing. I have loved it. I am going to dive into the strengths test because I genuinely want to know where I'm at. And yeah, let's actually work through Gazing Red2Blue.
We'll do Gazing Red2Blue, definitely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming in. And I hope that we get the opportunity to do this again.
Kate, thank you so much. We can definitely do a little follow-up.
I would love it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
That was great.
Cheers.